Hey everyone, I wanted to make a video talking about an RTS game from my childhood that I still love today, and that's Goblin Commander Unleash the Horde. And in this video, I want to talk about really what made Goblin Commander so unique for the time. It launched all the way back in 2003, and I still think a lot of its gameplay elements are still really common, what we see in today's games, especially in other RTS games. And I'm currently recording a walkthrough for this game that I'll soon post the entire thing in one video on the channel, hopefully in the coming days or weeks ahead. But in my time replaying Goblin Commander, I've noticed that it's actually aged really well. I think it's still really easy to play, pick up, and it's still fun and exciting. So I want to dive into what Goblin Commander is, where Goblin Commander went, and what are the chances we'll see Goblin Commander in the future. So let's start with what Goblin Commander is. Goblin Commander, it's a 2003 RTS game. It launched on the original Xbox, the PS2, and the Gamecube. It was published by Jolico USA. I've actually not really heard of this publisher, but from my research, it seems like they're actually pretty big in the retro area, as well as in the PS2 era. They kind of, I'll get into what happened to Jolico later on in the video. But what I love about Goblin Commander is its gameplay elements still hold up really well today in my recent playthrough. This story kind of takes place in a fantasy, it reminds me a little bit of like Dungeons and Dragons a little bit, but you control a goblin faction called the Stone Crusher clan. And there's a civil war happening with all of these goblin clans because their master was killed. And throughout this campaign, you actually end up controlling more clans, hence the name Goblin Commander. And what I think is really cool is each Goblin clan has their own specials, unique gameplay elements, unit designs, what they're good against, what they're weak against. It all changes based on the clan. And as the campaign progresses, you're controlling more and more factions, and the level design actually takes that into account because you might need a specific unit faction for this part of a level as different to a different part of a level. You need other factions of goblins. It's really cool, and I like it a lot. They're like, I think they're called soul fountains, which is kind of the equivalent of power nodes in Halo Wars. There is a little bit of base building going on. I love this game. Also, one thing I've not seen in an RTS game since I played Goblin Commander is this unique feature where you can actually control the entire clan, and it almost kind of turns into a third-person action game, I guess, is a way to kind of describe it. So if you hit on PS2, you hit like triangle. If you just do it on a goblin, I believe you control the entire faction. So you can have a max pop of 10 goblins. So you'll control all of those. And instead of using one of the face buttons, I think it's X maybe on PS2 to move around the Stone Crusher clan, to give them orders like attack buildings. You can queue up movements. You can have them destroy objects to collect gold. But if you hit triangle, you can actually control that entire faction using like the analog sticks. And then the face buttons have different things like attacking, which is really interesting because you can really control directly the entire faction of goblins. There's also super units. I believe they're called Titans, if my memory serves me right. And so you can actually, the only way you can control a Titan is directly, but you can have goblins follow the Titan. So you can have your entire, 10, 20, 30, 40 goblins following a single Titan, and they'll all attack when you tell your Titan to attack, which is really, really cool. I would say the campaign takes you about 7 or 8 hours to complete, about your standard size, I would say, for a game that came out in 2003, back in the day on the PS2. And it really is something that I cherish. I think it's a fun campaign. I don't think there's any really annoying levels. So if you're interested, I would definitely give it a shot. I'm currently actually playing it on Steam Deck. They have a great PS2 emulator through the emulating software Emu Deck, and it runs like a charm. Looks like you're playing the real thing. So if you have a Steam Deck, definitely check out Goblin Commander through emulation. Goblin Commander ultimately reviewed, I would say, averagely, I guess. So on GameCube, Metacritic was 71, PS2 it was 68, and on Xbox it was 70. I think the highest rating I see here through various review scores is both Game Informer and IGN gave it 8 out of 10, and then some website called GameZone actually gave it really high remarks, 8.8 out of 10 on the PS2. So some outlets really liked it, some outlets found it was average. I like to lean to I really liked it, but there you go. I also wanted to give a little bit of note to what happened to the publisher of Goblin Commander, Jolico USA, because I was hopeful that maybe in my research we could see if a common publisher or publisher we know today would be able to make a remake or remaster of Goblin Commander, or even just a re-release, to be honest with you, release it on modern platforms without changing anything, kind of like Stubbs the Zombie was, where it was like the same game just put on all platforms. I would love to see that for Goblin Commander, but I hate to break it to you, I don't think that's in the cards. So Jolico was founded all the way back in 1974. It was acquired in 2000 by a company called PCCW, and then they changed the name back to Jolico in 2002. In 2006, Jolico became its own independent company, and so it was completely spun off from PCCW, and that happened in 2006. I know this is really confusing, but hang on with me here. That spin-off company was actually acquired by a mobile game developer called Game Yaru in 2009. And then Jolico renamed itself to Encom Holdings shortly after. However, in 2014, Jolico's parent company, Game Yaru, that I mentioned, they filed for bankruptcy, and Jolico kind of vanished from the face of this earth. Their video game assets would be purchased by a company called City Collection. They're an indie Japanese game studio, and they continue to use their games for other side projects and licensing deals. I'm getting all this information from Wikipedia, by the way. But the original Jolico company, Econ Holdings, actually quit the video game business in 2009, citing stiff competition from the industry. And instead, they went into real estate, which I thought was really interesting to see. So anyway, Jolico is absolutely wasted in every sense of the term, which is really unfortunate. I really do wonder, like, who could we find out who owns these IPs? Who could we find out, like, are they even willing to sell these IPs? And what's the price to buy these IPs? Like, could a company who's really interested in making remakes or remasters or just re-releases of old cherished games go to some of these, shuttered studios and say, hey, how much would you want for this dead IP? I wonder if it's, like, possible for, like, that sort of thing to happen. I'm sure it is. We see that happen with Embracer Group. They've purchased certainly a lot of video game IPs over the years. So I guess the answer is probably not. We probably will never see Goblin Commander ever again. But, that's really sad because I thought it was a cherished entry and a lot of fun. But nonetheless, that is the history and the story of Goblin Commander, Unleash the Horde. I'd like to know if you've ever played this game, and if so, what are your thoughts about it? Do you like Goblin Commander? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I'm currently recording a full campaign walkthrough of Goblin Commander. I'm going to post that as one entire video, so that should be coming in the I guess the next few days, the next few weeks. I would say I'm about 2/3 done with that walkthrough, and I just really have to finish and edit the campaign. So I'm really excited to post that on the channel. And if you want to play Goblin Commander, it's really cheap on eBay if you want to get a physical copy. And if you want to play it through emulation, again, the Steam Deck is an awesome place to play this through EmuDeck. You get the PS2 emulator, find yourself a digital copy of Goblin Commander, and then you're all ready to play, and it runs beautifully on that hardware. Okay, that's going to do it for me. Thank you all so much for watching, everybody, and I'll see you, James.